So you want to learn to operate a DSLR or mirrorless camera in manual mode quickly and efficiently without any hassles. That's what we're doing today. I'm Robert Maxfield. I'm a concert and music photographer in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, and welcome to Max Concert Photography, where we talk everything concert photography related, and welcome. A lot of what we're going to do today applies to not only just concert photography, but all photography in general. And I'm going to start out with something real simple. We're going to talk ISO, and I use basically two primary ISOs, 400 and 1600. So when I'm outdoors in bright sunlight or partly cloudy or even cloudy, I'll use that one ISO, and that's what I'll start with is 400 ISO. Now I run all my cameras in full manual, and I don't use any automatics except white balance. So the ISO is going to be 400 in this case, and it's what we use for general photography outdoors in good conditions. And it comes in handy as a concert photographer because a lot of festivals that you will shoot start out in that kind of environment where it's bright sunlight or good or average sunlight. And I will set my metering in that case to matrix metering, which covers the entire scene, and go from there. And that's where I start. To give you an idea, I'm going to show you a few photographs that were done at 400 ISO in various conditions. Concert photos. I'm going to show you some regular photos. I'm going to show you some general photos that were shot at this. And remember, this is a baseline, but for most everything we do in good conditions, this works fine. This shot is of Isaiah Evans, and it is the Louisville Western Days in September, and it's about midday. So he was shot at ISO 400, 1/4000th of a second at f3.2. And this shot is of Dustin Perkins. It's also in Louisville, but this time it was shot on St. Patrick's Day. The weather was a little bit different, but still it was ISO 400, 1/2000th of a second at f6.3. In this shot, I boosted just a little bit to ISO 640, but it is at the Grapevine Italian Car Festival. I could have just as easily shot it at 400, but I shot it at 640 for some reason. And in this shot, I shot these Lamborghinis at ISO 350, but also very close to the same thing, 2000 at f4, and it's pretty similar shots. So all four of those shots were done in pretty good average sunlight, different times of year, a lot of the same stuff. One was done in March, one was done in September, another was done in August, but they were midday, good sunlight, not real harsh clouds, not bad weather, but for your run-of-the-mill average things, 400 ISO will work just fine. Okay, now let's talk high ISO. I know everybody wants to hear high ISO, but anyway, I am a firm believer in keeping your ISO down in dark conditions as much as possible. Only use what you have to. A lot of people will go out and blow their ISO out to 20,000. They say, well, I'll take care of it in post with using noise reduction and stuff like that. I'm not that way, but that's here or there. But I use typically most of the time 1600 ISO for when I'm filming and photographing indoors in small clubs, be it on the stage at festivals at night, indoors in large auditoriums and arenas, that kind of thing. That's my go-to is 1600. So now I'm going to show you a few photographs that I've taken in concerts at ISO 1600, and that's normally where I go. I rarely go above that, but I'm going to show you a couple right now. Okay, this is a shot of Jackie Don Lowe, and it was taken at Port David's Pub, down on Botham John, downtown Dallas, and it is definitely at 1600. This one is from the Black Rock Candy set, and it is at 1/320th of a second at f4.5 and right around 1600. I actually double checked, and I took this one down to 1250, ISO 1250. It was shot in a dark warehouse at the Dallas Market Hall at the International Guitar Festival. So sometimes even ISO 1600 is a little too much. Okay, so we talked ISO low and high and what I normally use. Now we're going to talk lenses, and this is really simple. This is a 75 to 240 f4.5 f5.6 zoom, and this is a kit lens for a lot of people. It's old, but it'll do as an example. I use something other than this when I'm shooting my music, but this lens is a good example. So if you are at 75 millimeter focal length, your shutter speed should be at least 1/75th of a second, preferably on average 1/100th of a second or 1/125th of a second. It should equal the focal length. So when this lens is at 240 millimeter, you should roughly be at 1/250th of a second. So anywhere in between, let's say you're at 200 millimeter, that should be 200 millimeters, and your shutter speed should be 1/200th of a second. Now, if you are using a 50 millimeter, you should be using something like 1/60th of a second at least. Doesn't mean if you're using an 18 millimeter, you can get away with 1/18th of a second. No, the best handhold speed for just about any lenses you can get that is less than 75 millimeters is a 1/60th of a second. That is if you have good, real good technique, and how you do that is you hold your breath, let it out, and fire the camera, and it's just like shooting a gun. There are exceptions to that shutter speed rule for the focal length of the lens, and that is if something is moving extremely fast. Jet planes, race cars, wildlife, rock musicians jumping up and down, that kind of thing. So in that case, you need to increase the shutter speed, and usually I'll increase it at least double. So if I'm at 200 millimeters on the lens, I will be at a 200th of a second normally. I'm going to set it to a 400th of a second or a 500th of a second, and if I can get away with it, probably an 800th of a second. So the faster something's moving, the faster the shutter speed I need to set. Now we've covered ISO and shutter speed. And typically I will set ISO before I leave the house because I know what the conditions I'm going to be shooting under, whether it's going to be bright sunshine or overcast or whatever I'm going to be shooting. I'll set that, or if I'm going to be indoors or outdoors where I'm shooting in darkness and stage lighting, that kind of thing, I know where to set that. I know the distance generally I'm going to be shooting at, so I've got my lens set. I know the subject I'm going to do, so I make the adjustments for that, and that covers my shutter speed. Okay, I'm getting ready to take the shot. I've got my ISO set. I've got my shutter speed set. The next thing to shoot with is my aperture, and I need to set that. And typically what I will do is I'll look through the camera, I'll look at the meter, and I can tell if I'm over or underexposed, and I will adjust the f-stop, the aperture, according to where I'm set for shutter speed and ISO. I'll make that match. Now, sometimes you're going to want to have a certain f-stop that you can use for a certain reason. And I'm going to show you how to get that creamy bokeh with that smooth, creamy background. There's sometimes you want to shoot for that. And at that point, you need to take and adjust your shutter speed down so that you can open that f-stop, that aperture up to get that kind of effect and achieve it. So, but for the general rule, when I set my ISO and I set my shutter speed, whatever I'm taking a picture of falls in line with those two settings, and that's the aperture. So I just adjust off that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some indoor or outdoor low light concert photography stuff that's done with wide open apertures. And you have to be careful with the wide open apertures because a lot of times, sometimes you will focus on the microphone or focus on an eye and the other eye will be out of focus or something like that. And that's because of the real shallow focus plane. This happens when you use longer lenses. When you use wider lenses, 28s, 24s, that kind of thing, it doesn't happen as much. The longer the lens you use, the more chance that you have of having things in and out of focus within a short distance. And one of the best things about it is when you use the longer lenses, you get you're able to get more bokeh, more of the creamy background kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you some photos that I did that with, and they're coming up right now. This shot is of the Mixtape Memoirs band, and as you can see, this shot has some pretty creamy bokeh in the back. And it was shot at ISO 1600, shutter speed 1/60th of a second. And you don't have to have wide open to get the bokeh, because the f on the aperture on this is f4.5. And as you can see, it's pretty darkly lit. It's lit with Christmas lights of all things. And that's had little bitty lights on the stage, and that's it. Now here's a daylight shot, and this is a shot of Ali Venable at the Dallas International Guitar Festival. This one I did shoot at 1600, ISO 1600, but it is at 1/500th of a second shutter speed and f3.2. And you can see there's some nice creamy background on this particular shot. This shot is from the Leo Hull barbecue at the Toyota Music Factory at the Texas Lotto Plaza. Its shots were done at ISO 1600, 1/200th of a second. I had a 200mm lens and f2.8. So hopefully this video will make it a little easier on you when it comes to trying to figure out the exposure triangle and how to make things practically work for exposure. And guess what? We made our 1,000 subscribers, so thank you. We're deeply appreciated to you guys for doing that. And thanks a lot. We'll see you later.